Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Red Rising, chapters 1 through 6. In these chapters, we are on Mars, ladies and gentlemen, and we have got people who are bred for certain purposes, and this is pretty grim. These chapters are Prologue and Part 1, Slave, chapters titled Helldiver, The Township, The Laurel, The Gift, The First Song, and The Martyr. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Alex for commissioning this episode. Alex is here in the chat. Hurrah! Welcome, Alex. Lovely to see you. So I'm pretty excited to be starting this series because so many of you have requested it. I don't think it's a completed series quite yet. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but like the next book is on its way. Like I feel like I remember there was either already a date for when it would come out. Is that right? Next year, Alex says. Okay. Ashley says the original trilogy is complete. Okay. So how many books are there in total? Just trying to figure out exactly how big a story this is. There will be 7. So there are 6 out, an original trilogy, and then are the 4 books part of an additional series, or are they all sort of like what's the word I want? Unconnected from each other, I guess. He wrote the trilogy and then added on 4 more books. Man, it's wild how this happens to writers. Like they really think they know what they're up to, and then it's just like shit takes on a life of its own. You guys, just off the top, I want to say I have decided to participate in NaNoWriMo this year, and I have started writing a cozy mystery, and I had this all planned out. And when I tell you, I'm like 1,000 words in, and already 2 things have not happened the way I intended them to happen. And you would really think, oh, I'm the writer, I'm in control. No. It's just a lie. And it's so funny. Like I feel for writers who have these big sprawling stories because I can see how that would happen. Oh yeah, there you go. Alex says in the 4 additional books were supposed to be 3 books, but the last book was far too big and needed to be split. You know, every day, my whole job is to come onto these lives and talk about something for an hour, and every time I'm like, I am going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about this, and even in the course of me alone on camera, shit doesn't go according to my plan. So I'll find myself 10 minutes over and I still haven't read the final chapter. You know what I mean? Like I just, it's a ride. It really is. So we're going to start at the beginning. The prologue. I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war. I watched 1,200 of their strongest sons and daughters, listening to a pitiless golden man speak between great marble pillars, listening to the beast who brought the flame that gnaws at my heart. And it's funny because you read this and it says a pitiless golden man, and golden is capitalized, which should indicate that this means something more than just like the metaphorical goldenness of somebody who is blonde or who is wearing a lot of gold, you know, like the kind of golden you would use to describe a Lannister, for example. But I am not hip to what's going on yet, so that's not how it hits me. I'm thinking still this is metaphorical. All men are not created equal, he declares. The weak have deceived you. They would say the meek should inherit the earth, that the strong should nurture the gentle. This is the noble lie of democracy, the cancer that poisoned mankind. His eyes pierced the gathered students. You and I are gold. We are the end of the evolutionary line. We tower above the flesh heap of man, shepherding the lesser colors. You have inherited this legacy, but it is not free. And he basically goes on to say, like, y'all are going to have to fight to subjugate people. So if you really want to be on top, you're going to need to, like, do that. And a lot of you are not going to live to do it. I am no gold. I am a red. He thinks men like me weak. He thinks me dumb, feeble, subhuman. I was not raised in palaces. I did not ride horses through meadows and eat meals of hummingbird tongues, to which I really had to stop and be like, is that real? Is this, once again, metaphorical, or are we eating hummingbird tongues out here? Because that feels like something that should be metaphorical. But I was forged in the bowels of this hard world, sharpened by hate, strengthened by love. He is wrong. None of them will survive. And then we go into part 1. There is a flower that grows on Mars. It is red and harsh and fit for our soil. It is called hemanthus. It means blood blossom. And we start off finding out that our main character's father was hanged when he was young. And he did not cry. His father asked him not to, and so he didn't. And he is like a little bit salty about the fact that he has an older brother who should have been the one to be badass and stoic, but isn't. And he just weeps unashamedly. And my sister Liana murmured a lament beside me. I just watched and thought it a shame that he died dancing, but without his dancing shoes. On Mars, there is not much gravity, so you have to pull the feet to break the neck. They let the loved ones do it. And I'm really glad that that made as much of an impression as it did, because later on, when shit goes down with his wife, my first thought was, oh man, he's going to have to go and pull her feet. This sucks. So this whole story so far, we are in the midst of I don't know how, like, allegedly far in the future this is happening, because, you know, we are hearing about how his original home, like his ancestors came from Earth, but they are on Mars and they are mining. And the main character, his name is Darrow. Forgive me, guys, because whenever I start something new, I usually need help with recalling all the names. But he is what is called a hell diver, which is a particularly daring type of miner. And he has to go into bowels that are super dangerous and wind up being like so hot and so caustic that they melt layers of the protective gear that they wear. And the daring of it makes you think that this guy himself is going to be someone who really bucks authority. But what is interesting about him as a character is that he is somebody who bucks immediate authority, his own relatives, the people around him, but he does not buck authority on a larger level and doesn't really see the point in it. For him, the whole reason for living is for family and friends and to get through things together. And he does not have any higher ethos or ideal than that, and he doesn't get why you would. He really is a practical type, and he shows off, but he does it because ultimately he wants better for the people around him in a small, practical, immediate way. It's not, once again, about a big picture. And it's interesting because usually this type of character who bucks authority in the first chapter, you're expecting them to be somebody who stands up against the big baddies in a much more aggressive and sometimes like more of a posturing way. And he doesn't do that at all, which I found really interesting. So we start off with him, and he is down here mining, and we find out pretty soon that there are quotas that they need to reach. And there is something that is like further down that could help get them even past their quota. And if they do enough and work enough to gain enough, they will get the laurel. The laurel is the vacation to Hawaii and the like hot pink convertible that you get promised if you become somebody who like does a multi-level marketing sales thing, where they show you a brochure with people who are allegedly the top earners and the ways that they can now like live in luxury. And they bait you by thinking all of this is possible. And they show you some people that have earned it allegedly and really trick you into thinking this is real and it's within your reach if only you are to work hard enough. And it's not that shit doesn't exist, period. It does exist. That's what's so fucked up about it. But it is only for the people on top. Things wouldn't work. The whole system would fall apart if it were actually possible for just anybody to reach this. That isn't how it can function. If everybody were able to work extra hard and just get ahead, you wouldn't have a bottom tier because everybody would be moving up. You would have a much bigger minority, like a much smaller minority remaining where they are. But because you don't have any other options, and you get shown not just the brochure of the pink convertible, but you have somebody living like right down the street, driving one past your house every day, it really feels extra possible and extra insulting that you don't get it. And they do. And this is a really great system. This is like a proven working system. This is exactly how anybody who is below a certain class tier is kept in line. They have figured out exactly how to make us hate and mistrust each other. And they give certain people just enough that they get very defensive of it. And there's a point later on that I love where he says, you'd think they would share. They don't. That's exactly correct. A lot of us have enough that we could technically share. And a lot of us don't really. And I'm not trying to shame anybody for it because I include myself in that. But we don't often. We'll share very little. And only intermittently. And we will tell ourselves it's because we ourselves are only barely getting by and we can't afford to share too much. And you know what? That is true. That is correct. And that's exactly how it's built. You give the people on the bottom very, very little. And then you give somebody else just enough more that it really feels like they're barely making it either. So that technically they have enough that they could share. But the sensation of having enough to share is never actually there. So while factually you could say in numbers, sure, you could donate X amount. Really, in practice, week to week and month to month, they kind of don't. They could if they really wanted to give up some of their little enjoyable treats. But when you have so little, those treats feel like the only reason to fucking keep going. And being asked to give those up feels offensive. Why should I? I barely have anything to to like get me through and make things more than just scraping by. It sucks for them that they have less than me, and I feel bad for them, but we're all in the same boat. While those people who have much less are looking at us like, we're not though, are we? Because you can have ice cream and you can have XYZ. And it's like, so we're technically, really, in fact, in the same boat. But it does not look like we are. There's just this perfectly, meticulously crafted illusion. And it's so, like, shameful how effective it is. Even on somebody like me who fully knows what's being done. Like, I see that, you know? But I literally have $15 in my bank account right now, kids. And it's really hard for me to, like, think, well, I probably could cut this and that and have enough that I could help somebody else. Yeah, I could. But I also am barely making it. And there's the ultimate, why should I? When there are people out there rolling in it who could do more than me. Why is it expected of me? That resentment. And they just stoke all of that. It's like very purposeful. So getting back to this, we get some info about like the kind of suit that he has to wear and the way that you have to like piss in it, you sweat in it, just the stink of it and how bad it is. A new river of sweat breaks through the scarlet sweatband tied around my forehead. And I used to reach and try to wipe the sweat away, only to scratch futilely at the faceplate of my fry suit. I still want to. Even after 3 years, the tickle and sting of the sweat is a raw misery. And I really like the extremely detailed description of what this kind of work is like. Because it's one thing to say that something is hard work, manual labor. And it's another thing to have every little discomfort documented. You know, it gives you such a sense of everything and the futility of a lot of it. It is a metaphor also. So let's see. Oh God, you guys, this part. The reach of the light fades as I look up into the thin vertical shaft I've carved. Above, precious helium-3 glimmers like liquid silver. But I'm looking at the shadows, looking for the pit vipers that curl through the darkness, seeking the warmth of my drill. They'll eat into your suit, too, bite through the shell, and then try to burrow into the warmest place they find, usually your belly, so they can lay their eggs. I've been bitten before. Still dream of the beast, black like a thick tendril of oil. They can get as wide as a thigh and as long as 3 men. But it's the babies we fear. They don't know how to ration their poison. Like me, their ancestors came from Earth, then Mars and the deep tunnels changed them. No. Okay? We're just gonna nope the fuck out of that. Unwilling. Moving on. I've been in the mines for 3 years. You start at 13. Old enough to screw, old enough to crew. At least that's what Uncle Neril said, except I didn't get married till 6 months back, so I don't know why he said it. And I'm like, baby, do you not realize that you don't have to be married to screw? Like, what's the confusion here? I'm sorry. I just see Alex in the chat saying snakes are so spiteful they'll exist on Mars. Listen, don't talk shit about snakes. I like me a snake. I'm going to be honest with you guys. They are creepy. Yes. But there's something about that that's like why I like them is the fact that they're just like, yeah, fuck you. My blood is cold and I don't have legs. And I just like it. It's very, it's sort of like, and there's a similar energy for me as well as spiders, where I'm just like, you're probably around to do me a favor. You're keeping flies out of things if you're a spider, and you're keeping rodents and other pests out of my shit if you're a snake. And I just can't help but see us as like fundamentally allies. But, you know, it's different when they're like, oh, let me burrow into your fucking belly and lay my eggs. Okay, now we've just gone ahead and we're just gonna, sidestep right past that. Miss T says, when I read that line, I thought, we're here on Mars and we're still doing sex equals marriage. Why? It feels like this has to be part of the control aspect, right? Like a breeding program, because it's very obviously these people are being bred, and they would instill this as a value system purposely to create a loyalty to somebody else that like leads to being willing to do whatever you need to sustain the bullshit system you're in, because you want them to be okay, which is what it's worked on Darrow clearly. Like his wife is his entire life, and that's they let you have just enough. What's the point if you don't have something to protect? So, God, it's so gross. Okay, so Io is the I want to say woman. She's not. She is 16. A tiny girl hidden beneath a mane of red. Red like the rock around me. Not true red. Rust red. Red like our home. She could be made from air, from the ether that binds the stars in a patchwork. Not that I've ever seen stars. No red from the mining colonies sees the stars. And that was when I really understood how dire shit is. Like, you live on Mars in a mining colony, and you literally have never been up to the surface to see the stars. It's already bad, but finding out that they are just forced to basically live underground like rats takes it up a notch. It was, you know what I'm saying? It's just a whole other situation. Once I heard that, I was like, oh, recontextualizing a whole lot now. They wanted to marry Io when she turned 14, like all the girls, but she took the short rations and waited for me to reach 16, wed age for men, before slipping that cord around her finger. She said she knew we'd marry since we were children. I didn't. And it's just wild to me. When she turned 14, but men, they have to wait until 16. And I was just like, this shit is so unfair. A lot of girls don't even have their period by 14. So if it's about breeding, that also doesn't feel like a great choice. But who knows? So he gets because he's like connected via some sort of communication network to others in his clan, and they are telling him to hold. And Neryl tells him there's a gas pocket. It's a tiny one. I can manage it. And everybody's sort of like mocking him. There's his Uncle Neryl and old Barlow. And they're all telling him to back off. And he is just like, dude, if you think there's a pocket, I'll just hop down and hand scan it. They'll preach caution, as if caution has ever helped them. Which is, again, really ironic, because this is literally what his wife says to him later, but he's not seeing the connection at all. Oh, God. You want to make Io a widow? Okay by me. She's a pretty little thing. Drill into that pocket and leave her to me. Old and fat I may be, but my drill still digs a dent. A chorus of laughter comes from the 200 drillers above. My knuckles turn white as I grip the controls. They really know exactly how to fucking get to him. There'll be time. Back off until we can get a reading. It'll take hours. You are being a coward. Silence. Calling a man a coward, not a good way to get his cooperation. Shouldn't have said it. I say make the scan yourself. Lauren, my cousin, and Neryl's son squawks. Don't, and Gamma is as good as gold. They'll get the laurel for the 100th time. And it turns out, we hear the laurel, what it means here. You get cigarettes, more food than you can eat. You get imported silks, and you get, ribbons, any kind of luxury item is with the laurel. And Gamma Clan has had it since anyone can remember, so it's always been about the quota for us lesser clans, just enough to scrape by. And as soon as he says this and begins thinking about how, oh, we're going to get the laurel this time, I'm like, no, you aren't. No, you're not. Like, it's not just about how young and clearly inexperienced he seems. It's also about the way everyone around him reacts when he is so sure that he's won the laurel. It's only the young ones that are celebrating with him. None of the elders seem to be at all convinced that this has worked. And there's a sense of, we just have to sit back and let him gloat until he gets to see for himself. And that's the thing that's extremely hard to read, because there are multiple chapters after this before it's time for the laurel to be handed out, that he is telling himself that they won it and planning on all of the things that he's going to be able to give Io. And like, it's just painful. He has his heart set on this thing that he believes he put in the work to get fair and square, because that's how it's supposed to work. And this is something that I get so frustrated by, because it's not that you can't succeed despite the odds in a theoretical, vague way. But what people don't understand is, if that system were to really allow everyone to do this, it couldn't sustain itself. So it has to undercut you, or else nothing works. So we are sold this dream of how we can all get somewhere from nowhere. And what they do is tell us these stories about folks doing it, and they edit those stories to really make it seem like it's within reach. So you hear about how, I don't know, like Bezos started Amazon from a garage. And what it makes it sound like is that he was some guy with like $2,000 in his bank account, and he had a garage and he just started a thing and it just blew up. No, he started off with like $1.5 million in seed money. Yeah, there was a garage that he put his computer in to do it, but that's not like, that wasn't the business. But it's told in this mythic sort of way that it was from nothing. And if you look at any like massive conglomerate like that, ultimately that's where you wind up, is somebody who was wealthy to start with in some way, or had wealthy parents, or they had a connection to somebody wealthy that agreed to invest hugely in them out of the gate. And so maybe the company was nothing, but they had every resource available possible to actually like get ahead with it. If you are, for example, from like me with a podcast, I have really gotten wildly lucky to be able to do this full time in any sense, considering the fact that I had no money and no connections. Because most podcasts that are hugely successful, you look at the names involved with it, and it's either somebody who's an outright minor celebrity, or people who produced radio shows for NPR, you know, somebody who used to work for Spotify, or people who were reporters for major outlets like the New York Times. These people weren't necessarily famous, but they came from organizations with a lot of backing and respect that got them into opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise had. And they had advertising money, or they got very lucky and wound up accidentally on the front page of Spotify for like months on end, even though they didn't pay for that advertising because of a glitch. Things like this. And so I work really hard. I record more than any other podcaster I have ever met in my life. I do 6 Spoil Me's a week on average, and then I do 2 additional public shows, and then I do every 2 weeks an additional recording with Rashawn. So that adds up to 8, maybe 9 recordings a week. And I also do all of my own editing and posting and socials and everything. I design all of my own banner images. Candace helps me with a lot of the admin stuff, and she is doing the schedules now. But she is the only help I have, and she's new, and she does not get paid remotely enough. Let's be real. There is literally no way that I am going to get more business doing what I do now unless somebody huge decides to prop me up somehow. Unless I get a huge influx of cash to start advertising, or unless somebody like with a massive following reposts me or retweets me and I suddenly get a magnifying glass on me that hadn't been there before. It will not happen, because hard work only can ever get you so far. And the rest is luck. Pure, unadulterated good luck. And I am just basically working my ass off, hoping for the luck to materialize. I had it initially with choosing A Song of Ice and Fire when the show began for Game of Thrones, and being early in the podcasting game in a very niche area where there wasn't a glut of podcasts yet, and it was a fresh show that everybody was super excited about with a very dedicated fandom. And I was able to strike that iron and get where I am currently, which is making roughly $13 an hour. And this is more than I have made at any job I have ever had in my life. And I just want that to sink in. I am making the equivalent of $13 an hour, and this is good money to me. And for most people, this is way too little to even be considered to get by. I can do it because I have a husband and we share an income. You know, like, if I was single, there's no fucking way this could not happen. So, all this to say, hard work is great, and it can do certain things for you. And I don't want to discount it, because I think it matters in other ways, just for your character. But the illusion that it actually will change your life in a giant way is a fantasy. It's going to improve your life in certain ways, and largely those ways are going to feel inadequate in comparison to what you have been told that work will do. And you're going to reach an age where you start to realize that, and you have to decide whether or not you let up on that hard work, and whether what you prioritize instead is more worthwhile or not. And what are you giving up if you decide that you're going to pull back? And that has been what's happened with the pandemic, and so many people quote quiet quitting, which translates to they do the work they're paid for, which everybody has acted as if it's like this, you know, epidemic. No, it's just a bunch of people wising up to the fact that trying to be an overachiever wasn't getting them anywhere except exhausted, burnt out, and with nothing left for their personal lives. So people pulled back and decided, oh, it's not worth it. Well, then I'll just save that energy for something more worthwhile. And you get the landscape for employment that you have today. So it's just, this is a whole thing, guys. It's so hard to read. So his uncle is a drunk, and he is really judgy about it. Once again, it's so easy to judge when you're young. I still judge so hard, but it's gotten a lot better than it used to be. I'll tell you that much. So he decides that he's going to go ahead and do it himself. Go down there and risk it. And it says, nothing is worth risking death. I'll see a few more of the slender things through her skin this month. He's thinking of her ribs. She'll go asking the Gamma families for scraps behind my back. I'll act like I don't know, but we'll still be hungry. I eat too much because I'm 16, and still growing. Io lies and says she's never got much of an appetite. Some women sell themselves for food or luxuries to the tin pots. Grays, to be technic about it. And technic gets used a lot to mean technical, and it comes up a lot. The society's garrison troops of our little mining colony. She wouldn't sell her body to feed me. Would she? But then I think about it. I'd do anything to feed her. And it's that thought that kind of spurs him on, and he's like, you know what? Fuck it. So he goes down, and I'm trying to find the spot here where it happens. I throw out my arm to catch myself on a gear. The 10 drills glow with heat. The air shimmers and distorts. I lower myself hand over hand, going feet first so I can lower the scanner close enough to the gas pocket to get a reading. The heat is unbearable. This is a mistake. And as he's like, okay, I'm done, I'm going to head back up again, his foot gets caught. And soon the layers of his suit begin to melt. And he's like, oh, this is really going to hit me. And he winds up accidentally touching a drill, which does burn through and burns his hand. I smell crackling flesh, but I'm up and off. I feel like crying. My uncle was right. I was wrong, but I'll be damned if I ever let him know it. And that really sums it up. Like, especially when you are an elder trying to tell a younger person how to be, they, like, even if you're right, they're not going to ever let you know that you were right. It's never going to happen. If anything, the fact that you were right is going to make them dig in more the next time. I know from experience. So he goes up and he says, minimal gas, drilling now, uncle. The haulbacks take my pull when the whistle call comes. So they get loaded onto this like grav lift. There's kind of a part that I thought was funny. A gamma scab with less than a week's worth of rust under his nails forgets to put his toes under the railing, so he hangs suspended as the lift shoots up 6 vertical kilometers. Got a floating gamma turd here. Petty as it may seem, it's always nice to see a gamma squab something. They get more food, more burners, more everything because of the Laurel. We get to despise them. But then we're supposed to, I think. And it's like he almost gets it, you know, like there's moments here where I'm sort of thinking, okay, there it is, you know, but it never really progresses to thinking bigger picture. So they have to shower off, and it's not water showers, it's air showers, which I am desperate to know how effective those actually are, because it's the sort of thing that I feel like sounds as if it's nothing, like it's just a complete joke. But I know that like bathing in sand actually works, and it's hard for me to imagine that. So I don't know, maybe this is a totally real thing. So he goes up against this guy named Ugly Dan here. They pulled Ugly Dan off the front line back in Eurasia, wherever that is, after he got crippled and they didn't want to buy him a new arm. He has an old replacement model now. He's insecure about it, so I make sure he sees me give the arm a glance. And he is a gray who winds up being the one to beat the shit out of Darrow later and gets him put up for lashes on the back. I think 38 is what he has to get. So they have been butting heads. There's a whole thing about it. And this is when everybody finds out that their take is bigger than the Gammas are. And they think, oh, we've got it in the bag. For sure, we've got the Laurel. At least some of them do. We hear a little bit about everything with his father and the reason that he died. And it's a song that and a dance that goes with it that is illegal. I didn't understand when I was little. One about distant vales, mist, lovers lost, and a reaper meant to guide us to our unseen home. I was small and curious when the woman sang it as her son was hanging for stealing foodstuffs. He would have been a tall boy, but he could never get enough food to put meat on his bones. His mother died next. The people of Lycos did the fading dirge for them, a tragic thumping of fists against chests, fading slowly, slowly, till the fists, like her heart, beat no more, and all dispersed. The sound haunted me that night. And I really like the sound of that dirge. I think that sounds really interesting. But this is something that winds up happening again for him in a much, much worse way. And we get some talk about him and Eo's history and the way that, they began to mean more and more to each other. And later on, we find out that there were a lot of boys who were trying to propose to her, and she just turned them down. So he got pretty lucky with her having her eye on him. He gets home and she has like cobwebs in her hair, and we find out that the women are meant to work in the webery where they get the stuff to make silk. And I don't know exactly like if the silk is just used for luxury items or if it's silk that's used for like equipment. I don't remember if that's mentioned specifically. But yeah, men and women are segregated and given totally different jobs. So we get the hollow can above me shows images of mankind's struggles, followed by soaring music as the society's triumph flashes past. Since the dawn of man, our saga as a species has been one of tribal warfare. It has been one of trial, one of sacrifice, one of daring to defy nature's limits. Now through duty and obedience we are united, but our struggle is no different. Sons and daughters of all colors, we are asked to sacrifice yet again. Here in our finest hour we cast our best seeds to the stars. Where first shall we flourish? Venus, Mercury, Mars, the moons of Neptune, Jupiter? And this whole thing is just so, it's all about like how you're sacrificing for the greater good and your life might suck now, but ultimately it's for the betterment of your later generations. And it's just such a complete crock. When you tell people everything they are doing, that they will never see the profits from it, and you straight up get them to expect that they are never going to see the profits of it, that's like 2/3 of the battle won right there. Just to be like, oh yeah, it's not about you. So no, it's not going to look like anything has changed to you probably, but promise it is. We know about it, even if you don't know about it. Wow. So they go to the common, and this is where they have their gathering and sort of a preemptive celebration. Like they really should not have, but they do. And he kind of gets in his uncle's face about the fact that he is salty, thinking that his uncle is jealous of him. But we know it's like his uncle knows better and just has to watch this kid suffer, but also put up with his cheek, which is really galling. Like, I can't get mad at him for being so pissy. They wind up in a small fist fight, and they get over it pretty quick and go back to just drinking and hanging out. But it's definitely a moment of just, guys, come on, get a hold of yourselves. I'm trying to see where the spot is here. Oh yeah, the women, they're beyond us, beyond me, lovely and spry, despite the weaponry, despite the children they bear. They wear layered skirts down past their knees and blouses of a half-dozen reds, never anything else, always red. They're the heart of the clans, and how much more beautiful they will look wrapped in the imported bows and ribbons and laces contained in the laurel boxes. I touch the sigils on my hands, a bone-like texture. It's a crude red circle with an arrow and cross-hatching. It feels right. Eo's doesn't. Her hair and eyes may be ours, but she could be one of the gold brows we see on the hollow can. She deserves it. Then I see her smack Lauren hard on the head as he throws back a mug of Ma's swill. God, if he's placing about the pieces, placed her well. I smile, but as I look behind her, my smile fades. Above the leaping dancers, amid the 100 swirling skirts and thumping boots and clapping hands, sways a single skeleton upon the cold, tall gallows. Others do not notice it. To me, it is a shadow, a reminder of my father's fate. Though we are diggers, we are not permitted to bury our dead. It's another of the society's laws. My father swayed for 2 months till they cut his skeleton down and ground his bones to dust. I was 6, but I tried to pull him down my first day. My uncle stopped me. I hated him because he kept me from my father's body. Later, I came to hate him again because I discovered he was weak. My father died for something while Uncle Gnarl lived and drank and squandered his life. He's a mad one, you'll see someday. Mad and brilliant and noble. Gnarl's the best of my brothers, my father once said. Now he's just the last. And I just really wonder about this. It feels like there was something that died in him. And maybe this is going to light a fire again. I don't know. But his wife is way smarter. He's so fucking stoked about this Laurel. And she knows, obviously knows, we're not getting it, babe. But she can't bear to rain on his parade. So she just has to let it be the thing. So, as the laurel wreath boxes come down to Gamma, I think about how clever it really is. They won't let us win the laurel. They don't care that the math doesn't work. They don't care the young scream in protest and the old moan their same tired wisdoms. This is just a demonstration of their power. It's their power. They decide the winner, a game of merit won by birth. It keeps the hierarchy in place. It keeps us striving but never conspiring. Yet, despite the disappointment, some part of us doesn't blame the society. We blame Gamma. A man's got only so much hate, I suppose, and when he sees his children's ribs through their shirts while his neighbors line their bellies with meat stews and sugared tarts, it's hard for him to hate anyone but them. You'd think they'd share. They don't. I really like that line. And we, like, this whole thing, he kind of gets over it, like, too fast for my taste. And at the same time, I realize that's a survival mechanism, you know? So this is when he runs off with his wife. She's like, I've got something to show you. And it turns out that she has found a way through the ventilation shafts up to the surface so that they can actually see the sky. And it's like, I think a forest that's protected under a sort of covering. I don't think that they have made the surface livable without some sort of infrastructure, right? So I'm assuming that this forest that they're in is something that's like under a dome of some kind. But this whole thing is the first time that he has ever seen some of the colors down. Like, there's butterflies and there's flowers and there's trees and there's all this stuff that he has literally never set eyes on in his life. And he falls to his knees and is just totally overwhelmed. I drink the sounds, the smells, the sight as my wife and I make love in a bed of grass beneath a roof of stars. That is the Andromeda Galaxy, she says later as we lie on our backs. The animals make chirping noises in the darkness. The sky above me is a frightening thing. If I stare too intently, I forget gravity's pull and feel as though I'm going to fall into it. So this is when she brings up, you won the laurel. And he's like, don't do it. I don't want to do this. And she says, come on, dude, this is what it's all about. You won fair and square, but they didn't give it to you. And he says, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm so happy here right now. And she's like, yeah. Here right now, in this place that you built with your labor that they keep for themselves and don't even let us near. Why should they? I ask, confused. Because we made it? Because it's ours? Is it? Darrow, are you so red that you don't see what they've done to us? Watch your tone, I say tightly. Her jaw flexes. I'm sorry, it's just we are in chains, Darrow. We are not colonists. Well, sure we are, but it's more on the spot to call us slaves. We beg for food, beg for laurels like dogs begging for scraps. You may be a slave, but I am not. I don't beg, I earn. I'm a helldiver. I was born to sacrifice, to make Mars ready for man. There's a nobility to obedience. She throws up her hands. A talking puppet, are you, spitting out their bloody damn lines? Your father had the right of it. He might not have been perfect, but he had the right of it. She grabs a clump of grass and tears it out of the ground. It seems like some sort of sacrilege. We have a claim over this land, Darrow. Our sweat and blood watered this soil. Yet it belongs to the Golds, to the society. How long has it been this way? 100, 150 years? Our blood and their orders. We prepare this land for colors that have never shed sweat for us. Colors that sit in comfort on their thrones on distant Earth. Colors that have never been to Mars. Is that something to live for? Your father had the right of it. Your father was weak. He had too much restraint. He had the right dream, but died because he would not fight to make it real. He was weaker than you. And he says careful, and she's like, really? Careful from you? I don't think you were born careful. I didn't think so when I married you. The others say you're like a machine because they think you know no fear. They don't see how your fear binds you. Spit it out. What do you want? I love you because you thought you could win the laurel. So do you love me because you think I think there are things worth the risk, or because I'm ambitious? Because you've a brain. I want you to use your gifts for your father's dream. You see how people watch you, take their cues from you. I want you to think owning this land, our land, is worth the risk. How much at risk? Your life. My life. You're that eager to be rid of me? Speak and they will listen. It's that bloody simple. And this whole thing, this is so rough because she's already laying her plan and you can tell. I knew what she was doing even here. You're not meant to be a martyr. You wouldn't see the point to it. Oh, well then tell me. What's the point to dying? I'm only a martyr's son, so tell me what that man accomplished by robbing me of a father. Tell me what good comes of all that bloody damn sadness. Why it's better I learned to dance from my uncle than my father. Did his death put food on your table? Did it make any of our lives any better? Dying for a cause doesn't do a bloody damn thing. It just robbed us of his laughter. It just stole away a father and a husband. So what if life isn't fair? We have family. That's all that should matter. Death isn't empty like you say it is. Emptiness is a life without freedom, Darrow. Emptiness is a living chained by fear of loss, of death. Break the chains of fear and you break the chains that bind us to the Golds, to the society. Mars could be ours. It could belong to the colonists who slaved here. The things you could do to make it happen. You've been given so much, but you set your sights so low. You repeat the same points. You think a dream is worth dying for? I say it isn't. You say it's better to die on your feet. I say it's better to live on our knees. You're not even living. What do you live for? I ask her suddenly. Is it for me? Is it for family and love? Or is it for some dream? It's not just some dream, Darrow. I live for the dream. That my children will be born free. That they will be what they like. That they will own the land their father gave them. I live for you, I say sadly. She kisses my cheek. Then you must live for more. And that's a pretty real, like, just being like, if you just live for me, babe, that's lame. That's not it. When somebody says they live for you, most of us would be like, oh, I love you too. And she's just like, really underachieving there, bud. I feel like that's not awesome. And I just cannot. I can't. She's just like, that's nice, sweetie. Oh, this bitch is cold-blooded. So, they leave, and they get caught. And we really see the thing here. When Darrow is given a chance to, like, fight back, but just for the fucking symbolism of it, it's not like he will win. He's outnumbered, you know, like, and Io is yelling for him to take a swing. It says, I'm not a fool. I thrust my hands up in surrender, and Dan sighs in disappointment as he clacks the magnetic manacles around my wrists. What would Io have had me do? She curses at them as they lock her arms together and drag us away through the webbery to the cells. This will mean the lash, but it will be just the lash, because I did not pick up the thumper, because I did not listen to Io. So, Io, at this point, I'm like, nah, kid. I know that you think it's going to be just the lash. She's got other plans, bruh. I don't know how to tell you this, but a bitch isn't coming back from this. Like, you just know at this point, ain't happening. So they get brought out in front of everybody, and it turns out that the gray, his name is Magistrate Podginnis. I cannot with this name. He's really doing a lot with his speech in a way that makes Darrow go like, okay, who's here? This is too much. And he looks around and he spots a gold that he eventually recognizes. And the interesting thing, his name is Nero Augustus, the Arch-Governor of Mars. The interesting thing about Darrow seeing him is that when he spots him, there's no sense of resentment. There's no sense of like, oh, this fucking guy. It's all like, wow, a gold. Oh my God. I shouldn't even look at him. Like, I'm so gross. But look at him. He's amazing. Like, it's just, he has been so utterly brainwashed that the beauty of this creature, there's nothing but admiration and aspiration. There's no real, like, understanding that there but for the grace of God go I. You know what I mean? Like, that could be me. There's none of that. It's just pure overwhelm. And he has with him obsidians. 2 crows, obsidians to be technic. Their skull helmets suit their color. I was born to mine the earth. They were born to kill men. More than 2 feet taller than I, 8 fingers on each massive hand. They breed them for war, and watching them is like watching the cold-blooded pit vipers who infest our minds. And I was like, 8 fingers on each hand. That is banana pants. No, do not like it. So he gets the lash. And this fucking moment, you guys, he gets whipped. And I like, there's something so incredible about this. I pass out twice, and each time I wake, I wonder if you can see my spine on the HC. It's a show. All a show of their power. They let the tin pot ugly Dan act sympathetic, as though he pities me. He whispers encouragement in my ear loud enough for the cameras, and when the last lash slashes my back, that is hard to say, he steps in as if to stop another from coming down. Subconsciously, I think he saves me. I'm thankful. I want to kiss him. He is salvation. But I know I've had my 48. And that moment of just like, oh, he's going to step in and make you think, when, of course, he's not done a thing. Ooh, I don't know. That got to me, guys. It really, really did. So this is when Io goes up there, and they maintain eye contact the whole time he's being whipped, and he cannot take it. She's so tiny, and just the effect of each of those lashes on her versus him, he just feels like she's going to be killed. Like, there's no way. And he starts asking for the punishment to be rained on him instead. There is this creature, this dude who's wearing a ton of makeup, and he is with the arch governor, and there's a real sense of him being like somehow an even more extreme version of a gold. And then Pod Guinness yells for him to be gagged, and they shove a stone in his mouth. And he sees Io make eye contact again, and then she starts to sing the song, and he realizes what she's doing. And he's like, oh God, no. And the song goes, my love, remember the cries when winter died for spring skies. They roared and roared, but we grabbed our seed and sowed a song against their greed. And down in the vale, hear the reaper swing, the reaper swing, the reaper swing. Down in the vale, hear the reaper sing, a tale of winter done. My son, remember the chains when gold ruled with iron reins. We roared and twisted and screamed for ours a veil of better dreams. And they hang her. Long story short, they hang her. And she gets an opportunity to give last words, and she chooses her sister, and he tries very consciously to not be jealous as this is happening. And he has to come forward and pull her to finish killing her. And she, before she dies, the last thing she, it says mouths to me, but I'm trying to say like lip reads is the opposite. You know what I'm talking about, guys, when you speak without sound. But yeah, it's live for more. And he just does not listen to her. It is just super not what he's going to do. She specifically says, live for more. And he's like, nah. So he decides he's going to throw it all away by burying her. And Alex is in the chat. One thing that maybe helps set a tone for the Reds, in the book they're portrayed as being Irish or having Irish Celtic accents. Audiobook, I should say. Yes, I did listen to the audiobook. I did both. I read print for some of it and listened to the audiobook for some. And yeah, and it's very clearly, like, even without the accent, that felt to me like what they were setting up. But I appreciate them getting somebody with an accent to do the audiobook, at least I don't know if there's multiple readers. I didn't check or anything because I don't know if there's just the one POV or not. So he heads over to, there's an interesting moment here too. Like, they play the video of her singing and the hanging. They play her song throughout, and as she dies, they play it again, which seems to give the video the wrong effect. Even if she were not my wife, I see a martyr. Then the HC flashes back for several moments. It flashes black. It's never gone to black before. And Octavia Alun comes back on with the same old message. It almost seems as though someone's hacked into the broadcast because my wife flickers onto the giant screen again. Break the chains, she cries. Then she's gone, and the screen is black. It crackles. The image comes back. She cries it again. Black once more. Standard programming goes up, then it cuts to her screaming one last time, and then there's me pulling her legs, then static. So somebody is fucking with things for sure. And I'm very interested to know who that is, because that was 100% planned. And I don't know if maybe this is what she told her sister to do, or if she had somebody else who knew that she was going to do this beforehand and planned it, ahead of time, or if it's somebody who's like in with the Greys or the Golds who actually is sympathetic to their cause. I don't know. But he is walking to the gallows to get his wife down, and he is going to bury her. And he runs into his uncle, who's drinking and giving him a really hard time. And it's just like, oh, you're going to go kill yourself like your fucking dumbass father. Great. Go ahead. And he's like, no, I don't need your permission to do it. And he's like, no, you don't, but I know what you're going to do. And you're going to kill your mother, but whatever, fine. She said you were going to die like this, so I guess it's fine. And he's like, my mom doesn't know her. She would have stopped me. And he's like, no, she wouldn't. You're old enough to make your own damn mistakes. But this isn't what your wife wanted. You know that. You don't know what she wanted. Righto, he says with a shrug. I'll walk with you then, since your head is full of rocks. So he tosses him his flask. And Darrow drinks from it and is like, this tastes weird. Huh. And then it says, he makes me finish the flask. And I'm like, oh, he's drugging you. Okay. You're definitely not going to make it to that gallows, kiddo. It's not happening. And as they're walking, he starts crying and says, she left me. She just left me. The tears come as I enter the common. My uncle takes me in a one-armed hug and kisses the crown of my head. It's all he can offer. He's not a man made for affection. His face is pale and ghostly, 35 and so old, so tired. Tell them hello for me in the Vale, he says into my ear, his beard coarse against my neck. Give my brothers a toast and my wife a kiss, especially Dancer. Dancer? You'll know him. And if you see your Gramp and Gran, tell them we still dance for them. They won't be long alone. Break the chains, here. He leaves me there in the common with my swaying wife. And right here, I'm like, are you? Are you, though, with your swaying wife? Because I feel like he drugged you pretty good. I don't know that this is all happening, my friend. And I remain uncertain because it ends with him dead. And I'm like, is he? I don't think so. So he cuts her down. The women watch in silence as I carry Io to the ventilation duct. Then I see Lana, my sister. Tall and quiet like my mother, she watches me with hard eyes, but she does nothing. None of the women do. They will not gossip about where my wife is buried. They will not speak, not even for the chocolate given to spies. Only 5 souls have been buried in 3 generations. Someone always hangs for it. This is the ultimate act of love. Io's silent requiem. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. She specifically told you what she wanted and you're just not doing that. So, ew, dude, get it together. So he talks about dragging her through the ventilation ducts and all of this. I'm just like, and nobody stops. Nobody sees this. Like, this just doesn't seem likely. And he buries her. I sob before I can finish. I uncover her face and kiss her again and hold my body to hers till I see a red sun rising through the artificial bubble roof. Oh, I missed that. There it is. The colors of the place scald my eyes and I cannot stop my tears. When I pull away, I see my headband poking from her pocket. She made it for me to take my sweat. I give it my tears now and take it with me. Kieran strikes me in the face when he sees me back in the township. This was the one thing that made me kind of go, maybe it's real. Because that seems real. My mother says nothing as she makes me a meal. I don't feel well. It's hard to breathe. Liana comes in late and helps her, kissing me on the head as I eat, lingering long enough to smell my hair. My mother holds my hand between her calloused palms. And the fact that he doesn't feel well here, I'm like, maybe he did take her down and bury her, and he's only just now starting to feel sick. But I would have thought if they're drugging him, the aim would be to keep him from doing the thing that gets him killed. Not to, like, knock him out after he's been able to do it. I finish the meal just as Ugly Dan comes. My mother does not leave the table as I'm pulled away. Her eyes stay fixed on where my hand lay. I think she believes if she does not look up, this will not happen. Even she can only bear so much. So he asks, as he is about to be put up to be hanged, he asks Io's sister what were her last words. She said she loved you. I don't believe her, but I smile and kiss her forehead. She can't handle more questions, and I'm dizzy. Hard to speak. I'll tell her you say hello. I do not sing. I am made for other things. My death is senseless. It is love. But Io was right. I don't understand this. This is not my victory. This is selfish. She told me to live for more. She wanted me to fight, but here I am dying despite what she wanted. Giving up because of the pain. I panic, as suicides do when they realize their folly. Too late. I feel the door beneath me open. My body falls. Rope flays my neck. My spine creaks. Needles lance my lumbar. Kieran stumbles forward. Uncle Neril shoves him away. With a wink, he touches my feet and pulls. I hope they do not bury me. I have no idea. Something about that drug, like he can't be dead. I'm just not buying it. The drugging happened for something. But I assumed it was going to be that, like, okay, none of this happened. And now I'm like, is it just to, like, relax him so much that the hanging doesn't crack his body the way it normally, like, is there something that can be done to keep it from working? Like, I don't even know. And I'm way over time, so I can't keep theorizing. I'm so over. But yeah, this is a hell of a beginning. So I'm going to have to really keep my eye on things because it's really tough starting a new series. I always go over time because I have to talk about, the world building and where we are and all of that. But hopefully the next section I won't go over. Fingers crossed. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. We're on the beginning of this wild ride. We are commissioned into the first chapters of book 2. Just those of you listening who are interested. This is not a commission that has been like bulk bought out for the entire book ahead of time. So if you want more and you're able to commission an episode, definitely join the Discord. I'll put the link to the Discord in the show notes and stuff so that people can join that and get info on it. And, yeah, that is going to be an ongoing process, is getting the rest of the series booked. So thank you again. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.